Hello, and welcome to Nobody Union series of Warcraft history, where we discuss the lore of the Warcraft universe and the edited lore that was changed for the World of Warcraft game by Blizzard. Recently, we have covered the very controversial subject regarding the War of the Ancients and the various accounts that revolve around it, noting that there are three different accounts of the war and that all three of them have similarities in the story as well as drastic differences. Today we continue forward with events that still revolve around the war, but is its own subject entirely. The Great Sundering. Much like the War of the Ancients, the Great Sundering too has three different accounts, and they too have drastic changes within them. Just like with the War of the Ancients, there is the Warcraft 3 account, the World of Warcraft account, and the War of the Ancients trilogy account. However, unlike the War of the Ancients, which changed the entire future of the world and created two different timelines, the Great Sundering had no such effect, and only caused the world to split into various continents and all three versions. So let's get straight to it. Knowing that the well's destruction would prevent him from ever wielding magic again, Illidan selfishly abandoned the group and set out to warn the Highborn of Malfurion's plan. Due to the insanity brought on by his addiction and the stinging resentment towards his brother's affair with Tyrande, Illidan felt no remorse at betraying Malfurion and siding with Ashara and her ilk. Above all else, Illidan vowed to protect the well's power by any means necessary. Heartbroken by his brother's departure, Malfurion led his companions into the heart of Ashara's temple. Yet, as they stormed into the main audience chamber, they found the Highborn in the midst of their final dark incantation. The communal spell created an unstable vortex of power within the well's turbulent depths. As Sargeras' ominous shadow drew ever closer to the surface, Malfurion and his allies rushed to attack. Ashara, having received Illidan's warning, was more than prepared for them. Nearly all of Malfurion's followers fell before the Mad Queen's powers. Tyrande, attempting to attack Ashara from behind, was caught off guard by the Queen's highborn guardsmen. Though she vanquished the guardsmen, Tyrande suffered grievous wounds at their hands. When Malfurion saw his love fall, he went into a murderous rage and resolved to end Ashara's life. As the battle raged inside and outside of the temple, Illidan appeared from the shadows near the shores of the Great Well. Producing a set of specially crafted vials, Illidan knelt and filled each with the well's shimmering waters. Convinced that the demons would crush the Night Elves' civilization, he planned to steal the sacred waters and keep their energies for himself. The ensuing battle between Malfurion and Ashara threw the Highborn's carefully crafted spellwork into chaos. The unstable vortex within the well's depths exploded and ignited a catastrophic chain of events that would sunder the world forever. The massive explosion rocked the temple to its foundations and sent massive quakes ripping through the tortured earth. As the horrific battle between the Legion and the Night Elves' allies raged around and above the ruined capital city, the surging well of eternity buckled in upon itself and collapsed. The resultant catastrophic explosion shattered the earth and blotted out the skies. As the aftershocks from the well's implosion rattled the bones of the world, the seas rushed in to fill the gaping wound left in the earth. Nearly 80% of Kalimdor's landmass had been blasted apart, leaving only a handful of separate continents surrounding the new raging sea. At the center of the new sea, where the Well of Eternity once stood, was a tumultuous storm of tidal fury and chaotic energies. This terrible scar, known as the Maelstrom, would never cease its furious spinning. It would remain a constant reminder of the terrible catastrophe, in the utopian era that had been lost forever. Somehow, against all odds, Queen Ashara and her highborn elite managed to survive the ordeal. Tortured and twisted by the powers they had released, Ashara and her followers were dragged down beneath the raging sea by the well's implosion. Cursed, transformed, they took on new shapes and became the hateful, serpentine Naga. Ashara herself expanded with hate and rage, becoming a massive monstrosity, reflecting the wickedness and malice that had always hidden within her core. There, at the bottom of the Maelstrom, the Naga built for themselves a new city, Najjatar, from which they would rebuild their power. It would take over 10,000 years before the Naga would reveal their existence to the surface world. That passage can be found in the History of Warcraft, Chapter 1, under the Sundering of the World, and it occurred approximately 9,999 years prior to the opening of the Dark Portal. This next passage can be found in the Warcraft RPG, page 22, under the Sundering of the World. The seas rushed in to fill the gaping wound left by the well's implosion. Kalimdor was sundered into a handful of separate continents surrounding the new, raging sea. At the center of the new sea, where the Well of Eternity once stood, was a tumultuous storm of tidal fury and chaotic energies that came to be called the Maelstrom. It stood throughout the passing centuries as a chilling testament to the terrible cataclysm that forever shattered the utopia once enjoyed by the Night Elves. A handful of Night Elves survived the explosion, including Malfurion, Tyrande, and Cenarius, miraculously enough. They sailed upon crude rafts to the only landmass in sight, the holy mountain of Hyjal. Ashara and her acolytes were smashed to the bottom of the raging sea, but other highborn survived the sundering. Though Malfurion mistrusted them, he was satisfied that they could cause no real mischief without the well's energies. This passage can be found in Warcraft RPG, Land of Conflict, page 17, under Lands of the Past, Lands of Savagery, Lands of Magic. While the dwarves and humans were still getting onto their feet, the elves, as we know them, had already been running for quite some time. More attuned to nature in the land, they were a nocturnal people known as the Kaldori. It's difficult to uncover too much about this period, as the elves of Quel'Thalas are loath to speak of it. Yet what is known is that these earliest elves were the first to discover the ways of magic through something called the Well of Eternity, a source of enormous power and great reverence. The well brought the Kaldori to heights never before seen on Kalimdor. Their cities and temples spread across the continent and left the other primitive races in awe. In the early histories of dwarves and humans, the Kaldori are shadowy figures of dark perfection, wielding incredible, godlike powers. Then something happened that changed the world forever. Something went wrong with the well, or with the Kaldori, or with both. Somehow, the Burning Legion entered the world for the first time. Kalimdor felt the searing lash of the demon armies for the first time as they ravaged the countryside and left it a smoldering wasteland. The humans and trolls retreated deep into the wild, and the dwarves sealed the gates of their underground cities, leaving the Kaldori to face the demons on their own. In the war that followed, the Kaldori rallied their forces and fought their way to the Well of Eternity. There, they made the supreme sacrifice, and destroyed the source of their power to rid the world of the Burning Legion. When the well collapsed, it took the world with it. Even in their distant fortresses, far from the well, the dwarfs feared for their lives, as the very rocks around them shifted and crawled as though they were living creatures. The great Caldori cities fell into the earth, and the sea rushed in to fill the void. Long dormant volcanoes erupted, and the rivers ran black with ash, running towards the sea in the whirling vortex that now marked the lands of the elves. As the dark clouds gathered to blot out the sun and sky for an entire generation, the first great age came to an end. The final passage can be found within the Warcraft 3 manual, under Night Elves, the Sentinels, Night Elf History, the Sundering of the World. It fell to the young scholar Firion Stormrage to find help for his beleaguered people. Stormrage, whose own brother Illidan practiced the Highborn's magics, was incensed by the growing corruption amongst the upper class. Convincing Illidan to forsake his dangerous obsession, Firion set out to find Cenarius and muster a resistance force. The young, beautiful priestess, Tararonde, agreed to accompany the brothers in the name of Elune. Though both Firion and Illidan shared a secret love for the idealistic priestess, Tyronda's heart belonged to Firion alone. Illidan resented his brother's budding romance with Tyrande, but knew that his heartache was nothing compared to the pain of his magical addiction. Illidan, who had grown dependent on magic's empowering energies, struggled to keep control of himself and his overwhelming hunger to tap the well's energies once again. However, with Tyranda's patient support, he was able to contain himself and help his brother find the reclusive demigod, Cenarius. Cenarius, who dwelt within the sacred moonglades of the distant Mount Hyjal, agreed to help the Night Elves by finding the ancient dragons and enlisting their aid. The dragons, led by the great red leviathan, Alexstrasza, agreed to send their mighty flights to engage the demons and their infernal masters. Cenarius, calling on the spirits of the enchanted forests, rallied an army of ancient tree men and led them against the Legion in a daring ground assault. As the Night Elves' allies converged upon Dashara's temple and the Well of Eternity, all-out warfare erupted. Despite the strength of their newfound allies, Firion and his colleagues realized that the Legion could not be defeated by martial strength alone. As the titanic battle raged around Ashara's capital city, the delusional queen waited in anticipation for Sargeras' arrival. The Lord of the Legion was preparing to pass through the Well of Eternity and enter the ravaged world. As his impossibly huge shadow drew ever closer to the well's raging surface, Ashara gathered the most powerful of her highborn followers. Only by linking their magics together in one focused spell would they be able to create a gateway large enough for Sargeras to enter. Firion, convinced that the Well of Eternity was the demon's umbilical link to the physical world, insisted that it should be destroyed. His companions, knowing that the well was the source of their immortality and powers, were shocked by the rash notion. Yet Tyrande, seeing the wisdom of Firion's theory, convinced Cenarius and their dragon comrades to storm Ashara's temple and find a way to shut the well down for good. Knowing that the well's destruction would prevent him from ever wielding magic again, Illidan selfishly abandoned the group and set out to warn the Highborn of Firion's plan. Due to the madness brought on by his addiction and the stinging resentment towards his brother's affair with Tyrande, Illidan felt no remorse at betraying Firion and siding with Dashara and her ilk. Above all else, Illidan vowed to protect the well's power by any means necessary. Heartbroken by his brother's departure, Firion led his companions into the heart of Ashara's temple. Yet, as they stormed into the main audience chamber, they found the Highborn in the midst of their final dark incantation. The raging communal spell created an unstable vortex of power within the well's raging depths. As Sargeras' ominous shadow drew ever closer to the surface, Firion and his allies rushed to attack. Ashara, having received Illidan's warning, was more than prepared for them. Nearly all of Firion's followers fell before the Mad Queen's raging powers. Tyrande, attempting to attack Ashara from behind, was caught off guard by the Queen's highborn guardsmen. Though she vanquished the guardsmen, Tyrande suffered grievous wounds at their hands. At seeing his love fall, Firion went into a murderous rage and resolved to end Ashara's life. As the battle raged inside and outside of the temple, Illidan appeared from the shadows near the shores of the Great Well. Producing a set of specially crafted vials, Illidan knelt and filled each with the well's shimmering waters. Convinced that the demons would crush the Night Elves' civilization, he planned to steal the sacred waters and keep their energies for himself. The ensuing battle between Firion and Ashara threw the Highborn's carefully crafted spellwork into chaos. The unstable vortex within the well's depths finally exploded and ignited a catastrophic chain of events that would sunder the world forever. The massive explosion rocked the temple to its foundations and sent massive quakes ripping through the tortured earth. As the horrific battle between the Legion and the Night Elves' allies raged around and above the ruined capital city, the surging well of eternity buckled in upon itself and collapsed. The resultant catastrophic explosion shattered the earth and blotted out the skies. The Great Sundering, generally referred to as the Sundering, or rarely referred to as the Cataclysm, not to be confused with the cataclysm caused by Deathwing, was a major event which reshaped the entire world of Azeroth approximately 9,999 through 9,998 years ago, towards the ending days of the War of the Ancients. Though the different accounts give various theories or reasons as to its cause, it is generally accepted and believed that it was created when Queen Ashara ordered the creation of a massive portal within the depths of the well itself. Due to the fact that Sargeras was too large to pass through the previous portals constructed by the Highborn, the well presented the perfect size for Sargeras. The portal was to allow Sargeras entry into the world, and due to the well's size and the fact that it was within the cosmic depths of the well, it would not only allow him to pass through it without much difficulty, but the portal would remain open as the magical water would maintain the portal, feeding it its energies and thus keeping it open. The well was also a desirable location for the new portal, as Sargeras desired both direct access to it and to feed upon its energies. And since the various portals throughout the war had been attacked, shut down, or strained the Highborn to maintain it, the portal within the well would suffer no such handicap, and would have been nearly impossible to shut down, thus being a very desirable location for strategic purposes. The Highborn succeeded in casting and creating the portal. However, for various reasons, an unstable vortex within the well's turbulent depths spun the portal out of control. The spellwork was thrown into chaos, and the portal began to collapse upon itself within the very heart of the well. This caused the well to churn and expand into a massive storm of chaos and destruction. The unstable vortex and series of explosions, which continued to expand in both size and speed of reoccurrence from the portal, continued to grow and expand in the depths of the well, and ignited a catastrophic chain of events that would sunder the world forever. The explosions rocked Ashara's temple to its very foundations and began to tear the continent apart. Though small at first, tremors turned into massive earthquakes. Heavy lightning and thunderstorms filled the skies as tsunamis and hurricanes began to beat upon the shores. Silent volcanoes burst open, roaring across the world. Ash rained from the skies, destroying entire regions and poisoning the surrounding rivers and forests. Magma and lava ripped out, bursting forth from the cracks in the ground. Black skies would block out the sun for an entire generation. Hailstorms and mudslides occurred all across the land as every major disaster imaginable took place, ripping the world apart. The surging well of eternity buckled in upon itself and collapsed in a final, massive explosion, blowing everything within the region to the bottom of the sea and ripping open the massive rift known as the Rift. The implosion of the well created a vortex that began to consume the central landmass of Kalimdor, and the seas rushed in to fill the gaping wound left in the earth. The continent had been ripped apart into new, smaller continents as the majority of the landmass was sent crashing into the ocean, taking countless lives, cities, and civilizations with it. Prior to the Sundering, there was only one known continent referred to as Kalimdor. In the catastrophic explosion, 80% of the landmass was destroyed, leaving behind the major continents and scattered islands that we know of today as Northrend, Kazan, Azeroth, also known as the Eastern Kingdoms, Pandaria, and the Remnant, still referred to as Kalimdor. The original location of the Well of Eternity still exists to this day. The well being destroyed and ruined became the swirling vortex of power known as the Maelstrom, which continues to rage to this day. The Maelstrom is a massive storm which covers the entire length of the original Well of Eternity, and is a continuation of the chaotic magic and spellwork that destroyed the well thousands of years ago. Natural magical forces that clashed with the arcane powers, the Maelstrom is the manifestation of destruction and anguish. It's located where the Well of Eternity once stood, and rages high above the rift that cracked open the world deep beneath the well during the massive struggle between Queen Ashara, Malfurion, and the struggling Highborn who were attempting to maintain and open the portal within the well itself. According to the Warcraft 3 account, the Sundering was created by the Maelstrom, which in turn was caused by the duel and battle between Malfurion Stormrage and Queen Ashara. Queen Ashara, one of the most powerful and influential characters in all of Warcraft, had ordered her Highborn followers to continue their spellwork and summon Sargeras through the portal within the well. Meanwhile, she battled with the young druid Malfurion Stormrage. Ashara's power was so vast, she saw little reason to truly engage Malfurion, and merely toyed with him at first. However, after witnessing Tyrande grievously wounded, Malfurion flew into a murderous rage and used all of his might and power, calling upon the elemental forces of nature and their vast magic. Ashara found herself surprised and somewhat overwhelmed by this strange magic, and began to use her power in earnest against Malfurion. Ashara called upon the well's energies more and more to combat the enraged Malfurion, who called upon the magic of nature and the stars to push the queen back, while simultaneously attacking the portal. The Highborn attempted to stop the assault and to repair the portal, but ultimately the strain was too much and the portal gave out, causing the implosion of the well. However, according to the War of the Ancients trilogy account by Richard A. Knack, the well was destroyed due to a series of assaults upon the well by different individuals. Illidan Stormrage, having covered himself with the well's waters, became empowered by the well's energies. He summoned a very powerful spell, incredible to behold, which was then even further empowered by three of the old gods, who sensed its potential to tear open the world and would allow them to free themselves. The attack caused massive damage to the well and began the process of creating the Maelstrom, but did not destroy it. Later on, Malfurion along with Illidan would attack the well again, using the Demon Soul as a device to concentrate their own power in. With the already awesome power of the Demon Soul, and with the combined powers of Malfurion's natural Druidic magic and Illidan's chaotic arcane magic, the brothers cast an incredibly powerful spell that was infused into the Demon Soul and shot forth into the depths of the Well of Eternity. Finally, Crossus would distract Sargeras, who was attempting to enter the world, by casting his own spell on a wound Sargeras had received by Broxigar. Following Crossus's instructions, Malfurion used the full power of the Demon Soul and assaulted the portal. Together, the brothers managed to destroy the portal, which sucked all the demons back through it in a massive vacuum before finally blasting itself and the land around it beneath the sea. Finally, the World of Warcraft account seems to follow the original concept from Warcraft 3, having Malfurion and Azshara dueling near the well and their powers causing its destruction. In this account, it appeared as if Azshara and Malfurion engaged each other fully and completely. Malfurion focused entirely on the Queen, angered by the fall of Tyrande, and enraged that the Queen had betrayed her people. Malfurion could hold his contempt for the Queen no more, and attempted to end her life, never taking his attention off of her, ignoring the Highborn and the portal. The Queen would be forced to use her vast power to hold the Mad Druid back in the ensuing battle, and unstable flows of energies threw the Highborn off balance and upset the stability of their intricate and delicate spellwork. The Highborn eventually lost control of the vortex that they had created, and the spell began its series of explosions, as the portal began its own process of imploding upon itself. The explosions happened in rapid succession deep within the turbulent depths of the Well of Eternity. The strain on both the well and the portal was too much, as Sargeras, the Highborn, the demons, and the Queen called more and more and more upon its magical flow to cast their own various spells. Not working in unison, and with their spells chaotic in nature, all would be thrown off as each competed for more magical energies from the well. The magical stability caused an imbalance with the magical flow, and the strain caused it to rip apart as a series of small explosions turned into massive ones. The portal, surrounded by the many explosions, warped and twisted as it began to collapse upon itself, ultimately resulting into a massive, catastrophic fusion that would expand and explode throughout the entire depths of the Well of Eternity, ripping open the planet and blasting everything beneath the sea. Regardless of which version's cause of the Sundering is to be considered official and canon, all accounts agree on its aftermath, such as the destruction of the ancient continent of Kalimdor, the creation of the Maelstrom, the destruction of both the portal and the Well of Eternity, as well as the various continents that would stem off of ancient Kalimdor. Virtually, all issues regarding the Great Sundering are agreed upon by the various accounts. It's really just its cause that any discrepancy is created. And that's it for today. This concludes the Great Sundering of the World. Thank you for watching today's episode. If you want to see more episodes and comparisons, please subscribe to my channel and like this video. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns, please feel free to message me. Also, don't forget about our Facebook page that is up and running. The link to that is in the About box. Until next time, I will see you on the next episode.